According to Darby, the first kill of a serial killer is someone he knows. If Bill is the first kill of an Iceland serial killer, does that mean it was someone who knew Bill, like Lee? What constitutes knowing Bill? Lui Mei shared a flight with Bill. Does that mean she knew him? We've heard Andy has no known connection to Bill. Now that is from AI Ray. But does that mean Andy's innocent? Is what's happening in Iceland a serial killer? Let's solve a murder at the end of the world. Episode 4, Chapter 4, Family Secrets. There's a killer on the loose and nowhere to run with a storm closing in. Darby breaks out of lockdown and discovers the retreat may not be what she thought it was. We'll be breaking down each episode for clues, suspects, and red herrings on the hunt to learn who killed Bill, who killed Rohan. Spoilers for the first 4 episodes of A Murder at the End of the World. If you haven't seen the first 4 episodes, pause this video. Go down into the safe room and make sure you're not attacked. At the end of the video, after your feedback, we'll go over the latest theory, and it's one focused on our heroine, Darby. Use the timestamps below to jump to the topic or suspect that you want to hear about and skip past stuff you don't want to hear about. If you're enjoying all our discussions of A Murder at the End of the World and want to hear more talk about it, our friends Andy and Axel from DVR Podcast are doing an after-show podcast about A Murder at the End of the World. You can check out DVR Podcast wherever you download great podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like. Looking at our stats, our first video on A Murder at the End of the World received 120 likes. Let's see if we can top it. We're past the halfway point. We gotta solve these killers and we gotta break some records for likes. Like this video if you're watching on YouTube. We love your feedback too, so go down in the comments and let us know who you think the killers are. If you're listening on audio podcast, know that we are at PHQ on all social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Facebook.com/PHQ. Email hello@PPmedia.com. If you're on an audio podcast like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, hey, we love star reviews. We love written reviews. We love to read all your thoughts. Let's talk about the Silver Doe Killer and how it relates to 18-year-old Darby. Darby's mother is missing. Does that mean dead or just missing like she left Darby? Is this pointing to Darby's father being the Silver Doe Killer? Last week we had Marta say the killer smelled of bleach. Who might smell of bleach but a mortician? Darby has the ring, the engagement ring, of the first victim, which we'll see she reunites with the skeletal remains in the basement. Who is the Silver Doe Killer? Before we run down the suspects, let's look and see what episode 4 taught us about our victims. First up, Bill Farrah, aka Fangs. For a would-be hacker, Bill loves analog devices like a Polaroid camera. Working with Darby and dental records, they confirm this one victim is Carmen Perez's remains. With Carmen's remains, they find a ring inscribed E. Bell. That is the first victim's engagement ring. As Bill is leaving the dark morgue and transitioning into light, he sneezes. He claims his father had the same problem. Does this mean his son Zoomer has the same problem? Now, Bill doesn't want to ask anyone for a place to stay. Instead, Bill wants to break into a hotel swimming pool, disturb paying customers, and get a room for free. Oh, you rebel Bill. Bill asks Darby if she wants kids. Now, this is when she's still 18 years old, and we're led to believe they haven't been intimate yet. This bit is a setup, which allows Bill to say that he wants kids and tell a story about his mom seeing a psychic called Faye Winter, who said Bill would have one child with a woman he slept with one time. This really is trying to hammer home that Bill is Zoomer's father. Because of this psychic, is that why he holds back initially when Darby tries to get intimate? In the morning, he says he wants to make sure that Darby knows what she wants from him. He is a good boyfriend. He did bring her a Coke coffee. #true love. As they're starting to get hot and heavy, Bill's heart races, though we need Dr. Zoomer to confirm it's truly racing. If we didn't know already, we learned one of Bill's artificial insanity art shows was against smart cities like the kind Lui Mei builds, and possibly the type Andy builds. One thing to think about Bill's death is he was shot with this morphine injection. In this episode, we see that it takes a code to be able to access the morphine shots. This code also appears to be too high for Zoomer to have reached. We believe that it's Todd entering the code, but it could be his wife Eva, Darby's kind of drug, so we can't see exactly who grabs it. Other victim, Rohan. Lee says that she invited Rohan, and let's pause to talk about who invited who. So Rohan would go under Lee's column, Bill would go under Andy's column, according to Lee, and Sean claims that Darby should be under Andy's column. Do you guys think it really matters who invited who? Back to Rohan. His pacemaker had a Wi-Fi monitoring system. A killer theoretically tried to update his pacemaker with new software, and that killed Rohan. Even though Darby says it would destroy evidence, people move Rohan's body to the freezer. He appears to have been signaling someone off the coast. Now, the little dinghy, the inflatable boat that gets him to his boat, is named Last Chance. What do you guys think one down, still a go means? Now let's look at the suspects. Darby Hart. In the past, Darby's ever-present iPod is actually her mother's, she says. Once again, she claims her mother is missing. Darby drinks heavily before she initiates the real first intimate moment with Bill. Bill rejects her, but the following morning she follows up on her desire and they go further. In the present timeline in Iceland, Darby is put back in her room, but she doesn't get her ring, which is also her room key, back. For a rebel internet detective, Darby doesn't try to keep any of her electronics, just kind of hides some from Todd. She hands them all over. Darby is very trusting of Sean just because she believes Sean isn't a hacker. And Darby shares so much information with Sean. After the car wreck, Darby was passed out for 25 minutes. Andy Ronson. When all the other guests were put down in the safe room, Andy doesn't go there, nor did really any of the staff go down to the safe room. Outside for Todd, his wife Eva, and the hotel manager Morris. According to security guy Todd, this is Andy's agenda. He put everybody down in the concrete bunker, and then he wanted them moved up to their room in isolation. Again, we have no idea where the rest of the staff went. Andy had super suits built. He believed these suits would be needed to survive extreme temperature and weather events that he believes are going to happen before 2050. Andy doesn't think tech can save the world from the coming climate disasters. All of Andy's funds, it's drained. He's putting it all in this Iceland initiative. According to Sean Zoomer, the sun is Andy's entire focus. And Andy is the one who not only suggests the emergency tracheotomy, but performs it. So Andy has knowledge that a doctor might have as well. Lee Andersen. As is her nature, Lee visits Darby when Darby is passed out, and she's there for Darby slightly while Darby's in and out of consciousness. Martin. Not much from Martin this week. He just wants to hear Darby, our Gen Z Sherlock Holmes, Darby's thoughts on what's happening. Oliver, I really didn't take any notes for him. Same with Ziba. Now, Lui Mei, there are a couple of things that we would want to pay attention to. Lui Mei's father had a pacemaker, so she would be familiar with what happened to Rohan and maybe how to kill him. Lui Mei is also a direct competitor to Andy in the smart city building world. Sean. Whoa, Sean gets a huge focus episode in this one. We've already talked about how Sean seems to have an intimate relationship or a very close relationship with Andy. She knows this hotel. She says she spent a lot of time as this hotel was being built. Now, in her favor, according to Darby, Sean is not a hacker. She doesn't know VI or Emacs at all. But despite not being a hacker, Sean is able to get out of this room lockdown by simply walking outside? Or did she have to hack her way outside and her way into Darby's room? One fun thing to think about is that by going to Darby's room that way, she avoided all the doorway cameras. Is it possible somebody entered Bill's room from the outside, away from those cameras? Sean claims that she didn't have faith in Darby at first, but now that she knows something's wrong and she always felt like something wrong, she's got to build a bond and support Darby. Now, when walking through the hotel, Sean knows a trick to blind the room cameras as they sneak around so no one will know. Again, Sean knows this hotel. She knows the whereabouts. She knows about the climate suits. She knows how to drive a snowmobile. She learned Morse code from her father, who later committed suicide. She mentions that her father was made to kill, even though he just wanted to look at stars. Is there another character who might have been forced to kill? Sean is very sympathetic to Darby in this episode, but is it possibly for evil motives? I mean, she is very desperate to learn Bill and Rohan's secret. She doesn't hide it. She keeps asking Darby, what was their secret? She wants to know everything Darby knows. She wants information. Now, in a classic murder mystery, you would have somebody who would get close to a detective, and maybe there would be an attempt on their life that they would survive, and that was all just a ruse to hide their guilt. Is there any chance that Sean is guilty? We know that she knows how to hack into these cars and drive them. She spent so much time in Iceland in this hotel. To me, it's like she knows how to drive in a snowstorm. She's driving on black ice very impressively until she suddenly reveals that Ronson Tech has no more money. And then there's a wreck right after she says it. Did somebody hack the car to wreck her from saying anything else? Sean, if she's a killer, she does drag Darby back to the hotel where she could have just let her die out in the snow. Sean's helmet seems to be hacked and won't let her take it off and breathe. Is it possible that as the car rolled over, as she was dragging Darby back to the hotel, she put on Darby's helmet and somebody was actually trying to hack and kill Darby and not her? How would the AI know whose helmet was who? David. Now, according to Sean, David wanted Andy to focus on David, but David got mad because Lee stole Andy's focus. One odd thing that Todd says down in the safe room is he says the house EMT has confirmed Rohan had a heart attack. Boy, this house EMT needs to be doing more work, like maybe looking after Darby after she got effed up in the crash. AI Ray. Where was Ray this episode? We're told by Todd that the Wi-Fi got turned off, but never trust AI Ray. Zoomer. At the beginning of the episode, Zoomer is crying. Is it because he loved Rohan so much, or he just didn't want to be dragged down to the safe room? Little Dr. Zoomer, he is inspecting Darby after she suffers her injury. And of course, Zoomer sneezes once the room switches from dark to light. Is he Bill's son? There can only be so many flashing signs that says Zoomer is Bill's son. Now let's get to your feedback. Satan's Little Helper listened to me dissing Bill and Darby's relationship in our podcast on episode 3, and Satan's Little Helper wrote, I disagree. I think Bill and Darby are the greatest love story ever. Heck yeah. Sky wrote, I think the board in the kitchen that Darby was using to write down people's room numbers at the hotel said that Rohan had a peanut allergy. Certain alcoholic beverages can be deadly with a peanut allergy. Note, we see a flask on Rohan's desk with liquid spilling out of it where he had been drinking before stumbling out of his room and dying. Sky continues, Darby is frequently seen wearing her red hoodie, Little Miss Riding Hood, and Bill's art name is Fangs, the big bad wolf. Perhaps Bill is not the good guy we assume. Love that feedback from Sky. Daniel wrote, if it all turns out to be a dream brought on by psychological fracture, I'll be so disappointed. Our good buddy Heath, who sometimes you can hear on the DVR podcast network, he says that, number 1, Darby looks like Jodie Foster. Oh, good call. Heath writes that his top 2 suspects are Lui Mei, just feels like she's behind something, but his long shot is Lee. She will try to frame her husband. Candace also gave feedback looking at Lee, saying, my guess is Lee is the mastermind behind it all because of how she was wronged in the past. She may have fallen in love with Bill, but he only liked her because she reminded him of Darby. After their one-night stand, he ghosted her, similar to how he dumped Darby. If Lee wanted Bill in her life, she would have told him about the son he had fathered. So I think Lee actually hated Bill because she felt humiliated. Lee learned more about Darby and Bill's relationship through the Silver Doe and wanted revenge. We love feedback. If you're on YouTube, it's easy. Just go down in the comments. But once again, on social media, at PHQ, on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, talk to us, facebook.com/PHQ. And we're going to go to this final theory, and admittedly, we're going to go off of some feedback for this as well. It's from Happy Tree Friend, who wrote, I can't shake off the idea that Darby is some kind of android, and this whole scenario is just set up to test her. Maybe Darby didn't survive back then in the basement when she and Bill confronted the Silver Doe Killer. And then she died, or maybe she fell into a coma or something, and Andy saved her consciousness by combining it with technology. Note that Sean told Darby Andy was, quote, the hand that feeds you. Also, there's a scene when Darby sees everyone wearing a mask. It looked almost like Darby was seeing a visual bug, like a malfunction. Maybe Darby's still part human, but she's also part AI. Think about AI Ray. We've been told he's very literal. Darby asked AI Ray, "Is anyone normal here?" Ray responded, "No, not even you." That statement by AI Ray aligns perfectly with the idea that Darby's not 100% normal, 100% human. Think about the way Andy interacts with her. What do you know about Disney? Do you notice a metallic taste? It's as if Andy is talking to a lab experiment. Ooh, love that feedback from Happy Tree Friend. And let's go with it. This is a theory called Darby is the android. This may seem ridiculous, but what's the first thing we learn about Darby? She wrote a book. What do we learn later about AI Ray? He wrote a screenplay. Who's to say that the Silver Doe wasn't actually written by the AI android version of Darby? And let's go back to the point that Happy Tree Friend wrote about how Darby suddenly sees masks on everyone. Think of how Darby's been experiencing this weekend. She can be there at the hotel, and then just in a memory, in an instant, she's back with Bill in her childhood on the hunt for the Silver Doe Killer. It's like these two memories are overlapping, like the data's been corrupted. One final part about Darby as AI. Think about this. We heard AI Ray tell a story as Hemingway Harry Potter. And what the AI did was it took existing material and remixed it to tell something based on original content. So it's like not really completely from scratch. It's like AI is taking things and mixing them together. Think about Darby's time at this retreat. Isn't it a bit of like an AI remix of her life? I mean, what has Darby been doing in her life? She's been investigating murders. Suddenly, there's this AI remix where, hey, she's got to investigate more murders. Darby's father taught her Morse code. Hey, in this remix, suddenly Sean's father taught her Morse code. Bill says, hey, I'm going to have one kid after having sex once, and then that's exactly what happens in this AI remix in Iceland. Darby, before Iceland, is obsessed with two people, Lee Andersen and Bill. Then what happens? Well, if this is an AI remix, suddenly those two people become part of an interconnected story with Darby. These two disparate people suddenly come together. Is what we're seeing an AI story being told to AI Darby? Is the mystery that Darby needs to solve the thing that Bill found out about that he wanted to talk to her about? Was that she's not real? Is this an audition for Darby to see if she can realize her true state? Would you guys like that, or would that ruin your dream of Darby, the Gen Z detective? Join us next week as we tackle episode 5. Darby confronts her suspect, only to find the tables turned and an unexpected alliance formed until someone else dies and her own life is threatened. Talk to you next week.